This is Han Donglai, president of Dingsheng Group. He is quite a sought-after person in the media. On the other hand, this girl mentions that Donglai is someone who any woman would want to have. Donglai is in a wheelchair because of an event that happened about 6 years ago. The girl moves and pretends to trip over Donglai to get his attention, to which Donglai's fiancé, named Zyxy, tells the girl that her career as an artist was over because she did that, although she has no regrets. Now we meet Zhongling. She returns to the city she left 6 years ago to treat her son Keel's congenital diabetes. On TV, Donglai is shown, to which Keel says he has seen him before, specifically in Ling's drawing albums, as she is a manual artist. Keel asks his mother if Donglai is his dad, to which she replies no and denies that the man she draws in her stories is him. Moments later, Keel is thirsty, so Ling fetches something to drink and leaves him alone for a few moments. But Keel looks at some balloons and goes after them. By the time Ling returns, Keel is gone and starts desperately looking for him. Keel looks at Donglai from a distance, so he approaches him because he still thinks he is his father. Donglai asks him where his mother is, to which he replies that he is lost. An important meeting was about to start and Keel wanted to stay with him, so Donglai accepts on the condition that he does not touch him. Donglai finds a letter with Keel's mother's details, so he asks his assistant Mu Chen to call the mother to pick up the child from the company. So Ling gets a call, and seeing that she was called from that company, she thinks it is just a coincidence. Keel and Donglai wait. Donglai asks Keel to call him uncle instead of dad. Soon after, Ling arrives to meet not only his son, but also Donglai, because yes, these two know each other very well. Donglai asks Mu Chen to take Keel for a moment to be alone with Ling. The two begin to talk. Donglai mentions that just as she wanted, he became disabled, to which she replies that Zyxy promised to cure him. The reality is that Donglai has not forgotten how Ling abandoned him 6 years ago when he needed her the most. She gets down on her knees to apologize and tells Donglai that she only came back to the city to treat Keel's illness. Donglai picks her up and asks her who Keel's father is. Then, we see a flashback of what happened 6 years ago. Both were in the valley mouth area. That day there was a high chance of avalanche. At that time, Ling was lost, while Donglai was desperately looking for her. Trying to escape, Ling enters a building, getting trapped inside. She sees a man passing by, but it is not Donglai. Later we will see the identity of this guy. The rocks start to fall, but Donglai manages to find her and get her out of there. When they were about to leave, the rocks were about to hit them, but Donglai protected Ling with his body, so he took all the damage. Donglai was taken to Jiangdong Hospital. The director of this hospital is Zyxy's father. She tells Ling that Donglai will be disabled. But that's not the only thing, because she also tells her that her family and Donglai's family have been friends for generations. That's why her father has treated Donglai as his future son-in-law, so he was upset to learn that Ling and Donglai were engaged. Basically, what Zyxy asks Ling is to disappear. Moments later, Donglai wakes up, but Ling just goes to say goodbye to him in a very cruel way, mentioning that she will leave the city. Even Donglai's mother was upset to hear Ling's words. As for Zia, Donglai wants to know the truth, but Ling just ended up leaving. Back to the present, Zyxy meets Keel, but it is unpleasant for him. Moments later, Zyxy enters the office, where she meets Donglai and Ling immediately throws her to the floor. Ling just wants Keel back and promises not to appear in front of Donglai again, but he makes it clear that he will not hurt the boy, much less leave him with a stranger. Ling says she will do anything to get him back, to which Donglai asks her to undress. She starts to do so before Zyxy's confused look, but things get complicated when Mu Chen enters with Keel in his arms, as he had fainted. He is rushed to the hospital. The reason for the fainting is that Keel has diabetes and had not taken insulin. Donglai says he had no idea about Keel's illness. Moments later, his mother arrives. She is not amused that Ling is back and even speaks ill of Keel, but she defends him. Soon after, Chumo, a famous actor who is Ling's acquaintance, shows up. He comes to check on Keel. Moments later, the doctor informs them that Keel is out of danger and they can now stop by to see him. Donglai gets upset as he thinks Chumo is Keel's father, but Ling tells him that's none of his business. Later, Keel is injected with insulin. He is happy to see Chumo, as he has not seen him for a long time. Soon after, we learn that thanks to Keel's diabetes, his kidney has developed complications. But Chumo tells Ling not to worry, as the doctors in Zhongcheng are the best in the country. Seconds later, Chumo comments to her that someone named Zhao belonging to Tianyu Media wants to acquire the copyright of the manual Stuck With You for a movie adaptation. This manual was written by Ling. She wonders why it should be that one and not another. Ling says that once Keel is discharged, she will take care of the matter. But just as they were about to leave, this guy appears out of nowhere and photographs them. Meanwhile, Donglai researched about the background of superstar Chumo. He is the most influential artist at the moment. Donglai wants to know what relationship Ling has with Chumo. As for the guy spying on them, he went to meet none other than Zyxy, as she had given him the task of photographing Ling and Chumo to spread rumors. Ling attends to the affairs of the film adaptation of her play, so she meets with the president in charge of everything, who happens to be Donglai, as Tianyu Media has just been acquired by Dingsheng Group. Donglai tells Ling that he will give her another chance to stay by his side. Ling says she doesn't want to get involved with the Han family anymore, to which Donglai thinks she rejects him for being disabled. Ling hits him and tries to leave, but Donglai catches her in his arms to press her to find out if Chumo is Keel's father and the person she left him for 6 years ago. Donglai tells her that he is capable of destroying Chumo and her son if she resists, to which Ling lowers her defenses. But Donglai cannot continue and pushes her to leave. Already outside, Ling mentions something that may give a little hint of who Keel's father is. From there we see Chumo, who is with his assistant talking about the recent scandals. The old man wants to know what relationship he has with Ling, but Chumo asks him to get out of the car as he has things to do. Moments later, Chumo contacts Ling and picks her up. Mucho asked his assistant to take care of Keel. Then he shows Ling that there are many paparazzi at the hospital gate because they were secretly photographed. Later, Zyxy goes to see Donglai to tell him that Chumo and Ling were photographed, then starts bad-mouthing her and raises the possibility of Keel being Chumo's son to Donglai, because if this is true, his career would be ruined. But Dingsheng Group's new project signed Chumo as the lead actor, so Zyxy asks him if it is good for them to help them like that, to which Donglai replies that if they dare to do it, then they should not be afraid of being exposed. Donglai is clear, if he can't have her, no one will have her. Chumo takes Ling to her house and asks her why she still lives in such an ugly place. After that we see a flashback of how they both met. Some guys stumbled upon Ling to beat up a guy. In doing so, she lost her necklace, but realizing they were beating someone, she threatened to call the police, so they left the guy alone. She helps him to get up, and when she is about to leave, she faints, so the guy goes to help her. Ling wakes up in the hospital. Who helped her was Chumo, and the reason Ling had fainted was because of the pregnancy, which she was not aware of. As they get out of the car, the landlady harasses Ling with questions about the rumors with Chumo. Representatives of Dingsheng Group meet with Chumo to warn him that the scandals he is getting into will affect the promotion of the film. But his assistant intervenes to say that this child is not Chumo's. He is just being nice to Ling. Chumo intervenes to say that they can't afford to hurt Ling and Keel since he is not an illegitimate child. So he says that since people are worried about the relationship the two may have, then they should announce it. Donglai was listening from outside. Ling tells Chumo that she doesn't want Keel to see her on TV, but he insists that she should be there with them, so they prepare clothes for her. Chumo's assistant warns him not to do anything stupid, as announcing that he has a family at 23 would destroy his career. We go to the Stuck With You conference, where Chumo, future male lead, and the original Manu author and screenwriter, Ling, are present. Ling clarifies that she and Chumo are not dating, so they press her more by bringing up the topic of the photos and her son. Being bombarded with questions, Chumo steps in to help her and speak, but before doing so, Donglai steps in to speak on behalf of Dingsheng Group. He announces that they will not withdraw the investment because of the scandals. On the contrary, they would invest more and protect Chumo and Ling from the scandals they are involved in. Later, Ling goes to talk to Donglai, as he is supposed to give up the copyright of the play, to which he replies that this is a great opportunity for the play to succeed. Chumo approaches to thank Donglai, but Donglai reacts curtly and on top of that asks Ling to carry him in the chair. After this, Chumo's assistant tells him that he should no longer meet privately with Ling. The next day, crazy Zyxy goes to see Keel for answers, but the little boy refuses to answer everything and also refers to Donglai as his father. This upsets Zyxy, as she is Donglai's supposed fiancé. Fortunately, Ling arrives just in time. Ling tells Keel to go play to talk to Zyxy alone. She wastes no time and starts to threaten Keel with death. Ling tells her the truth. She only came back to treat her son's diabetes. She also tells Zyxy that she promised to cure Donglai 6 years ago. Ling tells her that it was just an accident that they met again, as she wants nothing to do with Donglai and her. Zyxy continues with the threats, so Ling takes a piece of glass to show her that she is willing to kill her if she does anything to Keel. Furthermore, Ling mentions that 6 years ago, it was Zyxy who asked her to go to the mountains with Donglai. Here a bit of the truth comes out. Zyxy mentions that she wanted to kill Ling, not to hurt Donglai. Moments later, she tells Ling that no one will believe her if she says those things to the public, but Ling will not expose her, as she came back just to give her son a normal life. Ling makes it clear to Zyxy that there must be traces of the atrocity he committed 6 years ago and that sooner or later the truth will come out. Ling goes to get Keel. The little boy is playing with Donglai. He tells him that he is being discharged soon and would like him to pick him up. Donglai asks Ling what Zyxy told her, but she doesn't give him a concrete answer. Still, Donglai notices the wound on Ling's hand. Moments later, Keel pushes Ling so that Ling falls into Donglai's legs and they take a ride on the chair. Meanwhile, Zyxy argues with this guy because he has failed to do anything right. The guy tries to forcibly seduce Zyxy so that she will stop thinking about Donglai and focus on him. Zyxy ends up begging him to let her go. The guy claims to know Ling's address and will do what Zyxy asked him to do. The next day, Keel is discharged. Ling tells him again that Donglai is not his father, so they should not bother him. Later, they return home, but there the landlady is waiting for them along with this old man. They, because of the recent scandals, want to kick Ling out of the house. She refuses as they have a signed contract, but the landlady insists. This because they think Keel has a contagious disease. The landlady wants to burn Ling's things, but she goes ahead and threatens to burn the house. Seconds later, Mu-chen and Donglai show up to help. The old man wants to hit Donglai, but he threatens to cut his tongue, but Ling stops him. She then explains that having a contract, that what the landlady did is considered as trespassing, so she tells her that she will report this. Besides, she makes it clear to them that she does not want to live in that dirty place. Ling and Donglai are left alone. She asks him how he knows where she lives. Donglai mentions that he didn't expect that after so many years. Ling's life is still a mess. Donglai notices that Ling's hands are very cold, but she simply changes the subject of the conversation. Ling thanks him for the help, to which Donglai says he did it for Keel, as his father Chumo is irresponsible. But Ling tells him that Chumo is not the child's father, but also refuses to tell him who the real father is. Donglai gets angry, as he believes he has a right to know after what happened 6 years ago. Although Donglai insists, she won't tell him who the child's father is. Moreover, she blames him that every time they see each other, her life is a mess. She screams in his face that he is her bad luck. Mu-chen comes back in the car with Keel. Ling asks him to get out to take him home, but they really have nowhere to go, so Ling ends up getting in and they ride together in the car. Keel was happy until he fell asleep. Ling asks to find a hotel for her, but Donglai replies that due to her international exposure, it will be difficult to find a vacancy so late. Ling insists that expensive hotels always have vacancies, but Donglai mentions that Keel must be in a better place because he just got out of the hospital, so he tells Ling to stay at his house. She thanks him, then Donglai brings out his overbearing side. Later, they arrive at Donglai's house. Keel wakes up and says he wants to share bed with both of them, but they refuse. Ling tells Keel that Donglai will only accompany him for one night. As for him, he climbs into bed without Mu-chen's help. And talking about him, he thanks Ling for taking care of Donglai and leaves her some pills that Donglai should take, then leaves. Bedtime came, so Keel goes to sleep with Donglai. Ling gives him one of the pills and then turns off the lights and then goes to bed with them too. This is somewhat uncomfortable for both of them, but they have no choice but to try to sleep. Moments later, she notices something behind. She misinterprets it thinking it's Donglai, but she had completely forgotten that Keel was there. Too long single? Anyway, Ling can't stand it and leaves the room. The next morning, Keel wakes her up, then they want to go to the bathroom, but Donglai is inside, even though he has been in there for quite some time. So she goes in, but Donglai is passed out on the floor, so she asks Keel for a blanket and the phone to call Mu-chen. She apologizes to him, while Donglai mumbled that he did not want her to leave. Later, Mu-chen arrives. Donglai is fine. He just had a cold for the previous night. This because since the accident 6 years ago, his immune system has become more sensitive. Ling takes care of Donglai. Donglai moments later wakes up and catches Ling up to kiss her. At that moment, Keel and Mu-chen enter the room, so they stop with the kiss as Donglai woke up. Ling says she doesn't want to stay anymore, so she takes Keel to pack things and leave. At that moment, Donglai complains to Mu-chen about the way Ling is treating him after he helped her. Keel doesn't want to leave. He wants to live in that house. He knows Donglai won't kick him out, so he asks Ling to stay and live there. Donglai has no problem with them staying. Mu-chen also asks Ling to stay, as it is best for everyone, so they avoid problems with Donglai's mother. Ling says he needs to find a kindergarten for Keel, but Donglai has already taken care of that. Keel tells Donglai that Ling cried when he fainted, and asks if he is so sick that he will die soon, to which Donglai says he will be fine. Instead, Keel says he will die soon. Since that is what they usually tell him in the hospital, he really likes sweets, but the doctor won't let him eat them, and every time he secretly ate sweets, Ling would cry, and he doesn't want her to cry. However, Ling starts to cry because she is listening to everything Keel says. Donglai makes it clear to Keel that he will not let him die, but he is not afraid of death, and if anything keeps him alive. He wants to help Ling and protect her because he has no father. That is why he has been looking for one, and since he saw Donglai's face on his mother's manuals, that is why he is sure that Donglai is his father and the person who will help Ling. Donglai's mother is worried about him, as he hasn't been home much, but Mu-chen tells her that everything is fine. As for Zyxy, she wants to know who Donglai is with right now, to which Mu-chen tells her that he is with Ling, as she lost her house recently and now that she has a contract with Tianyu Media, so Donglai can't let her employee live on the street. Donglai's mother has no problems if Ling is able to take care of her son. The one who does have problems is Zyxy, who hits Mu-chen and later Ling, but she defends herself by throwing garbage on her. Zyxy wants to pressure her to leave again, to which Ling claims that she has no idea of Donglai's true physical condition. Zyxy is sure that Ling came back to take Donglai away from her, so she makes it clear to her that Mrs. Han will not stand idly by. Moments later, Donglai asks Ling if she met Zyxy, then tells her that she shouldn't worry about what she says. Ling, due to pressure, no longer wants to live with Donglai, so she asks him to at least let her rent that house. That's why moments later, Donglai decides to leave. He, seeing that she had nothing more to say to him, leaves. Ling believes that if he is together with Donglai, they will not be able to have peaceful lives. As for Donglai, he tells Mu Chen to arrange his next surgery as soon as possible. Zyxy is with Mrs. Han, but they are intercepted by many people who want to interview them. Mrs. Han says that the engagement between Donglai and Zyxy is true, and there will be a party for it soon. One of the reporters asks Zyxy if it is true that Donglai was engaged to Ling in the past, but this question does not please her very much. So much so that Zyxy later asks his thug to beat up this journalist. Keel asks Donglai when he will be back, to which Donglai replies that it will be soon. Moments later, Ling asks him to leave the room. Shumo had come for a visit. He tells Ling that the Stuck With You project is about to start, so they should get closer to work. That's why the next day they have a meeting with the two main roles, Chumo and this other girl. Moments later, the girl mentions a part of the play that she doesn't know how to perform well, and since it was Ling who wrote it, she asks her to give a demonstration, to which Chumo also joins in. Ling and Chumo reenact a rather romantic scene and Donglai ends up watching this. After that, the director congratulates them for the good performance they did. Then Donglai enters the room and asks why Ling is there, to which the director replies that she is the new script assistant, so she will be on the whole project. Full of jealousy, Donglai orders Chumo to be expelled from the project. The director refuses, as he is the only suitable actor for the role, and they don't have time to change the male lead. Seeing this, Donglai plans to change the director as well, so this girl intervenes to say that she should be changed too. She talks to Donglai to make him see reason. Furthermore, she clarifies that the contract has already been signed and the project has been promoted despite the scandals. So no such thing as expelling Chumo can be done. Donglai tells her that it is useless to threaten him, but in the end he ends up giving in. Chumo approaches him to thank him for taking care of Ling and Keel lately, but Donglai simply ignores him. Later, Ling asks Donglai to stop interfering with her work, to which he reminds her who she is working for. Donglai tells her that he knows that she is not able to pay the rent, so he lets her stay in that house and will not get Chumo fired either. But in return, she must take off her clothes, but not in a bad way. Donglai brought her a change of clothes as they were going to an event in the evening. That event was Mrs. Han's birthday party, where Zyxy's engagement to Donglai would be announced. Mrs. Han was with Zyxy's parents. Shortly after, she arrives to talk about the engagement and how well the two families get along. As for Donglai, he arrives seconds later, accompanied with Ling. Ling didn't know until she arrived that they were going to Mrs. Han's party. By the time she arrives, people are whispering about her beauty, but things get complicated when Donglai and Ling arrive where Mrs. Han and the others are. She asks him why he brought Ling to the party, to which he replies that he was supposed to come with a date, and that's what he did. Next, Donglai asks Zyxy if she didn't bring a date. This makes her uncomfortable, and more so her parents. Moments later, someone shows up to interview Donglai, as that was supposed to be the party where they would announce the engagement between Zyxy and him. Mu Chen runs to the reporters telling them that there will be no engagement announcement. Zyxy's father gets angry, then mentions that he remembers that 6 years ago, it was because of Ling that Zyxy and Donglai's engagement, which was agreed upon before they were born, was cancelled. Mrs. Han apologizes, while Donglai tells them to their faces that he never agreed to marry Zyxy. She tells him that he went too far and leaves, while Mr. and Mrs. Lin demanded an explanation. Moments later, this girl named Manly appears to give Mrs. Han the birthday gift. After that, she takes Ling and smiles at her, telling that she is on her side. Mrs. Han asks Donglai for explanations. While Mr. and Mrs. Lin want to talk privately with Ling, they ask Ling to stay away from Donglai, as the engagement between him and Zyxy has long been arranged. Ling does not plan to receive threats from anyone. She plans to frame him for not taking good care of Donglai, but Mr. Lin says he has a clear conscience, as he did his best to help him. In addition, they clarify that Ling left at a very convenient time, so as Mr. Lin did not seem to be lying, Ling has no choice but to leave them. Outside the party, Zyxy was with that dude, who was planning to join the party as well. But Zyxy had told him that they should not be near each other in public. But Zyxy has not answered this guy's calls for days, and he demands at the very least thanks for beating that reporter from before. Ling heard everything, and seeing this guy, she remembers that on the day of the avalanche when she was locked in, he was there. For now, it's best that they don't notice her presence, so soon after, she calls Chumo to ask him for a favor. Zyxy and this guy meet. She claims to him that 6 years ago she paid him a lot of money to get rid of Ling and he failed. Furthermore, she also asked him to destroy Chumo and Ling and he still failed. She calls him useless, to which he replies that she was the one who insisted on creating some kind of accident 6 years ago. Zyxy didn't want to go to jail, that's why she acted this way, and even though they know they can investigate everything and find her out, she trusts that it won't happen. Moments later, the guy gets up, hits her and says that he is not her slave, and that if he goes to jail, she will go too. After that, the guy leaves. But Chumo had been following him, and realized that the place where they met is the Lin family's private club. Keel is reunited with Donglai, but Ling pushes him away and asks for explanations, for if he is supposed to be engaged to Zyxy, why is he clinging to Ling so much? Donglai says the engagement was arranged by his his mother without consulting him first. Next, Keel shows Donglai the album where Ling draws every time she is unhappy. Keel has secretly read it, and Donglai, seeing the drawings, notices that they look too much like him. Ling comes back to take the album from him and denies that the person in the pictures is him, as there are many people who look alike. Ling tells Donglai that he should leave now because they will sleep, but he does not plan to leave today, as he disobeyed Mrs. Han and avoided the engagement. He was kicked out of his house. Ling tells him to sleep in the other room and reminds him that the dubbing of the movie starts the next day after that. Upon entering the room, Ling is so smiling, Keel notices, but she evades him. Keel asks Ling to sleep next to Donglai, but she tells him no. The next morning, filming begins, and a scene is made where Chumo is beaten. This scene has already been practiced over and over again and is still being done, this by Donglai's orders, because the truth is that this scene is not even in the script. The actress asks Donglai to stop repeating the scene, but he ignores her and tells the director to continue. Moments later, Ling arrives and they discuss the situation with her. Then she notices that Chumo is injured and she makes it clear that there is no such scene in the play. Donglai gives everyone 3 days off and the filming ends for the day. Later, we see that Chumo has a lot of bruises on his back. Manly helps him. Shortly after, Ling enters the set and apologizes to him, as she thinks it is her fault that Donglai acted that way. Chumo tells Ling to stop seeing him as a younger brother. Next, she starts to tell him that maybe he should pay more attention to Manly, but Chumo says he only sees her as a big sister. As for Ling, Chumo wanted to take the opportunity to tell her that he didn't see her as his sister, but Ling left before he could speak. Donglai follows Ling to talk to her about the script, to which she gets angry that he is changing it as he pleases, after which Donglai says he will not change the script anymore and then invites Ling to lunch. Mrs. Han goes to visit the house where Ling is living, but there is only Keel there for now. He was not going to open until he found out that she was Donglai's mother and refers to her as grandmother. Mrs. Han gives Keel a candy without knowing his illness. The little boy asks Mrs. Han not to say anything about it to Ling. After that, Mrs. Han asks Keel if Donglai often visits this house. The little boy answers yes. Mrs. Han notices that Keel's eyebrows are similar to Donglai's when he was young, and upon learning that Keel is 5 years old, she desperately asks him what year he was born in, at which point, Keel begins to feel dizzy. Soon after, Ling and Donglai return. Ling scolds Keel for opening the door when she is not there, to which he replies that it was his grandmother. Ling tells Mrs. Han that she is renting this place, so she asks her not to come back and bother Keel or her. It is at that moment where Keel's dizziness gets worse and the boy ends up fainting. But we'll see about that in part 2. So guys, if you liked the video, subscribe and like to see part 2.